Baruch atah Asherah Anat Melech Ha'olam Asher Kadishanu Mitzvotav V'tzivanu V'hitatif L'tzitzit. Hi, Bay the Boo. Good morning. How are you? Good morning, Mason. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for the rose, Seed. Thanks for the rose, Seed. Maybe I should enunciate, huh? How's everyone doing today? Shema Yisrael Asher Eloheinu Yahweh Echad. Vahafta et Anat Elohecha ub'chol levavcha ובכל נפשך, ובכל מאודייך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר נוחים מצווך, היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך, בביתך, ולכתך, בדרך, ובשכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאוהות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך. וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. וחיה, כי ויחיה אלוהיך אל הארץ אשר נשבע לאבותיך, לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב, לתת לך ערים גדולות וטובות אשר לא בנית, ובתים מלאים כל טובה אשר לא מילאת, וברות עצובים אשר לא עשת, והקרבים וזיתים אשר לא נתת, והלכת ושבת, הישמר לך פן תשכח את יהוה אשר תישך מארץ מצרים מבית עבדים. Why don't you guess, flux capacitor? So, today we are going to continue reading from the Descent of Ishtar. Where we left off, Ishtar had passed through the gates into the land of the dead. Or she's about to. She's at the gate of the land of the dead, talking to the gatekeeper, and this is what he says. Cease, my lady, and refrain from breaking down the door. Rather allow me to go to Queen Ereshkigal and inform her. So the gatekeeper proceeded within and spoke to Ereshkigal. She has come, Ishtar, your sister from the realm of the sky, she who holds in her possession the mighty springing toy, who, when she is with Ea, agitates the waters of Apsu. When Ereshkigal had heard, she went red as raw tamarisk, and her lips deepened in hue like the Kununi vessel's brim. Why has she come here? What provoked her to confront me? It must not be because I have drunk at Anunnaki's table. or not that I have clay as my bread, or dirty water as my beer? It is I who suffer tears for the youths forced to leave their loves. It is I who cry for maidens snatched from their darlings' laps. It is I who must weep for the babe who is doomed all too soon. So, guardian of the gate, go and make the way open for her, and let her experience what the most ancient rites decree. The rites of death. Thus the gate's guardian departed, opening the way for her. Enter, lady, and may the land of Kutha bring you delight, and may the realm of no return citadel be glad to see you. Thus he allowed her to pass through the door of the first gate, but he tore off and kept the splendid crown upon her head, and Ishtar raised her voice to be heard to the gatekeeper, "Why did you tear the splendid crown from off my head?" And the gatekeeper raised his voice to be heard to Ishtar, "Enter, lady, for these are the ways of the mistress of earth." He allowed her to pass through the door of the second gate, but he tore off and kept the earrings which adorned her ears. And Ishtar raised her voice to be heard to the gatekeeper, "Why did you take from me the earrings adorning my ears?" And the gatekeeper raised his voice to be heard to Ishtar, "Enter, lady, for these are the ways of the mistress of earth." He allowed her to pass through the door of the third gate, but he tore off and kept the bead necklace about her neck. And Ishtar raised her voice to be heard to the gatekeeper, "Why did you take the bead necklace from around my neck?" And the gatekeeper raised his voice to be heard to Ishtar, "Enter, lady, for these are the ways of the mistress of earth." He allowed her to pass through the doors of the fourth gate, but he tore off and kept the brooch pin clasped at her chest. And Ishtar raised her voice to be heard to the gatekeeper, "Why did you take the brooch pin clasped upon my chest?" And the gatekeeper raised his voice to be heard to Ishtar, "Enter, lady, for these are the ways of the mistress of earth." Thus he allowed her to pass through the door of the fifth gate, but he tore off and kept the birthstone belt girding her waist, and Ishtar raised her voice to be heard to the gatekeeper, "Why did you take the birthstone girding my waist?" And the gatekeeper raised his voice to be heard to Ishtar, "Enter, lady, for these are the ways of the mistress of earth." Everything gets taken from you in the land of the dead. Thus he allowed her to pass through the door of the sixth gate, but he tore off and kept the bangles at her ankles and wrists. And Ishtar raised her voice to be heard to the gatekeeper, "Why did you take the bangles around my ankles and wrists?" And the gatekeeper raised his voice to be heard to Ishtar, "Enter, lady, for these are the ways of the mistress of earth." He allowed her to pass through the door of the seventh gate, but he tore off and kept the regal garb which enwrapped her. She's fully naked in the land of the dead. And Ishtar raised her voice to be heard to the gatekeeper, "Why? Why did you take the regal garb that enwrapped my body?" And the gatekeeper raised his voice to be heard to Ishtar, "Enter, lady, for these are the ways of the mistress of earth." Just as Ishtar had descended into the realm of no return, when Ereshkigal first saw her, she shivered in her presence. Ishtar did not mince words, but rather stood tall before her. Ereshkigal raised her voice, speaking to her officer Namtar. "Proceed now, Namtar, who are the executor of my designs. Unleash the 60 melodies upon Ishtar to prevail over her. Thus you send the melody of eye against her eyes, the melody of arm against her arms. Thus you send the melody of foot against her feet, and the melody of heart against her heart. Thus will you send the melody of head against her head. Send them into every of her members and into her very soul." And with that, we will conclude our reading for today, and we will resume tomorrow and learn how Ishtar dies and is reborn. Jaya Jaya Arati Vina Vinayaka Vina Vinayaka Shri Ganesha Jaya Jaya Arati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala, Venugopala, Venuola, Papa Vidura Navanita Chora, Jaya Jaya Arati Venkanta Ramana, Venkanta Ramana Sankata Harana, Sita Rama Radhe Shama, Jaya Jaya Arati Gauri Manohara, Gauri Manohara, Bhavani Sankara, Samba Sadashiva Uma Maheshwara, Jaya Jaya Arati Raja Rajeshwari, Raja Rajeshwari, Tripura Sundari, Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati, Mahakali Mahashakti, Jaya Jaya Arati Anjaneya, Anjaneya Hanumanta, Jaya Jaya Arati Dattatreya, Dattatreya Trimutri Avatara, Jaya Jaya Arati Adityaya, Adityaya Bhaskaraya, Jaya Jaya Arati Sanistaraya, Sanistaraya Bhaskaraya, Jaya Jaya Arati Sankarachaya, Sankarachaya Advaita Guravi, Jaya Jaya Arati Sadgurunata, Sadgurunata Shivananda, Jaya Jaya Arati Vishnu Devananda, Vishnu Devananda, Vishnu Devananda, Jaya Jaya Arati Agastya Munaye, Agastya Munaye, Shri Rama Priyaye, Jaya Jaya Arati Ayappa Samine, Ayappa Samine, Dharma Shastave, Jaya Jaya Arati Jesus Grave, Moses Grave, Buddha Grave, Jaya Jaya Arati Muhammad Grave, Guru Nanak Grave, Samastya Gurubho Namaha, Jaya Jaya Arati Venugopala. Om Natatra Suyobati Natandrakaratam Nima Vidyobati Kutoyamagni Twameva Vantamanamanti Sarvam Tasya Basya Samitam Vivanti Om Gange Kayomane Kaiva Govari Saraswati Narmade Siddhikaveri Hiyaha Namastitam Namo Namaha. Twameva Mata Chapita Twameva Twameva Bandisha Saka Twameva Twameva Vidya Javinam Twameva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Kayena Vacha Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmanava Prakrite Sabhavad Karomi Adyad Sakalam Parasmahe Narayana Iti Sarmar Payami Savadharmam Pravichayam Amikam Savanambraja Am Sva Sarvapapayo Mokshayami Masicha. Whatever actions I perform with my body, speech, mind, senses, my nature, my intellect, or my emotions, all these, I dedicate to you. Thanks for being here with me today. And now we will say Kaddish. So Kaddish is a prayer of mourning, prayer of grief. And in saying these words, we remind ourselves about all the pain that we have endured. All the pain that has been endured since life began 3.8 billion years ago. To live is to suffer. And we can acknowledge that and suffer with that fact and yet experience it together. Do you believe that public mourning is a very viable way of processing grief? Good morning, Batya. How are you doing? It's nice to see you. For the last 2,500 years, give or take, my ancestors have said these words in response to death. Yidgadal vidgadash sheme rabba. Biamadivach yute viam nichmal hute bachayachon of yomechon of chayedikol be Israel bagalav isman kari vimr. Amin. Yehe sheme rabba me ba'arach li'alam omei al maya yidbarach vishtabach vid ba'ar vit ramam vit naseh vit adar vit ale vit alal sheme de kudisha barechu. Leila min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata jami ran bi'ama vimr. Amin. Yesh lama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'yachol Yisrael vimru. Amin. Ose shalom b'imramav huya ase shalom aleinu v'yachol Yisrael vimru. Amen. Ose shalom b'imramav huya ase shalom aleinu v'yachol Yisrael v'imru v'imru. Amen. Thank you for joining me today. Appreciate it very much. I'll be here tomorrow to say these words once more. And I hope to see you then. And in the meantime, if you appreciate this stream and what we do here together, I would encourage you to check out the links in my bio. You can support the stream on Patreon, or with a one-time tip, or by subscribing on TikTok, or by TikTok gifts. There's many ways to do it, many things that you can do. So thank you, and I'll see you here tomorrow. It'll be a really lovely day. Okay, farewell.